Hey everyone, it's Leslie with Living in Mission Viejo. This is part 2 of my Trabuco Hills High School series, where we find out what really sets this campus apart and why so many families want to be part of this incredible school community. Let's dive in. How does the school encourage leadership and involvement outside the classroom?
We have ASB and we have a few other ways for students to get involved. Through ASB, they run a student senate. That's looked a little different for a few different years. So for a couple years, it was kind of the standard of everyone sent a student representative from third period.
Okay.
And those students were then, tasked with reporting back on events and planning and things like that when they went back to class. Last year, Mr. Louis essentially asked for volunteers, and this year he's, kind of preparing to start seeking members for a student senate. And then I actually started a student leadership program myself last year. Our superintendent has traditionally done a advisory council, and she meets with staff, she meets with teacher groups, our classified staff and parents, and then she also has a student one. Oh. And I thought, well, that might be something I could do. So last year I started one that's, kind of a principals advisory group that I referred to as my student think tank. So it was an opportunity for students to come in and share ideas with me, and we could kind of bounce ideas off each other and see what things we might actually be able to make changes to, or at least just give students that opportunity of actually meeting with me one-on-one, that they don't always get that chance in a small group setting. So yeah, I thought it was a unique way. And I do think a lot of our students take advantage of being leaders in some of their clubs and things. Some of our more robust active ones, like our honor societies and things like that, where students are in leadership roles. I have students that'll want to start leadership things. We have students that are looking at doing a Future Business Leaders of America. That's an officially recognized leadership group. And then I had some students that reached out to me in the last couple of weeks that want to start a health and science leadership club as well with their sports medicine teacher. Okay. So kind of another way that's a little bit more formalized of a leadership program than a typical, club where you could be a, president or secretary or whatever. And so these are a little bit more formal and ways for students to have those leadership opportunities also. It was neat because when I started it last year, I wasn't sure who would sign up. And I literally just did here's a Google form if you want to, come meet with me. And I set it up we have flex time. So it's a half hour on Tuesday and Thursday that students can pick any teacher of theirs that they want to go to. And so I, set it up to where they could come in to see me. And I set it up six times over the course of the year. And I wasn't quite sure who was going to want to do it. And I actually ended up with students across all 4 grade levels that represented a nice wide swath of our student body. I felt like there were some students that were in, more advanced classes and things like that. And then I had, typical students as well. And, kids that were in athletics, some that were already in ASB or IB and AP. And so it was a nice wide range of students, and I'm hoping to expand it even more.
Do you have enough parking for all the students?
We do not.
Okay.
We are limited in our parking. And so students can request parking through our student store, and it's a nominal fee to park.
Yeah.
They do have to have a placard, though, to be able to park in our lot. And so it's kind of a first come, first serve to get a placard at the very start of the year.
Oh, okay.
We joke a little bit that it's almost like Ticketmaster
because
it is so limited.
Yeah.
What I will say, though, is we usually reserve a lot more parking for our seniors because we want to try to make sure that as many of them can be accommodated as possible. And last I checked, we still have parking available for seniors.
Well, that's good.
So we didn't sell out of the senior parking.
Wow.
We did sell out of the junior parking because there's not as many spots for the juniors. And we have to make sure we still have parking for the staff.
Yeah.
So the people that work here do need to be able to park as well. And actually the entire bottom level of our parking structure is reserved for staff. And then the top level is one of our senior parking lots. And then we have a couple other lots as well that are split. One of them's all seniors, and then the other split between juniors and seniors a little bit. So it's kind of interesting just because I feel like over the course of time, I've noticed not as many students are driving or have a car, because it's, that's an economic thing. It's not always cheap to get a car right when you turn 16.
Yeah.
So I know my first couple cars were ones that were hand-me-downs from
Right.
parents and things like that.
Yeah.
So, and I think so we have students that since they still don't have a car, they don't even get their license because they don't have anything to drive.
Yeah.
So that's something I've seen change over time.
What safety measures are in place on campus?
I mean, we have a lot of different measures that are in place, both at the classroom level and then at the administrative level. We're a little unique compared to a lot of other schools because we're not gated or fenced fully.
Okay.
So it's a school that's relatively easy for a student to just leave if they wanted to just leave. So during lunchtime, we have all of our campus supervisors and several of our administrators are out on the perimeter checking IDs because our district does have a policy that freshmen and sophomores are to remain on campus at lunch. So we check IDs at lunchtime to prevent students from being able to leave that are not in 11th or 12th grade. And then at the classroom level, all of our teachers have phones in their rooms that they can call, and we give them kind of some procedural things of who to call if there's an immediate emergency in their classroom or something like that. My assistant principal, Stephanie Carpenter, that kind of manages safety and facilities, takes everybody through the protocols on that at the start of the year every year. And then all of our classrooms, the district provides us with lock blocks. So all of the rooms are technically locked, and then the teachers engage the lock blocks so that if we were to go into a lockdown or a shelter in place or something like that where they needed to stay in the room, they'd be able to just engage or disengage the lock block, and the door would be shut very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
We do train all of our staff at the start of the year of kind of the district procedures for what to do if there was an intruder that came on campus or tried to enter their room or something.
Mm-hmm.
So our teachers receive that training each year, and then they also review some of that with students. And we do drills every month, and it's kind of part of basic district procedure in every district. So we have 3 different kinds of drills. We'll do fire drills, which we often have to remind people to get away from the building for the drills.
Yeah.
Depending on the weather. We've unfortunately done some where it's been pouring rain, and we could have a fire in the rain.
Yeah.
So
That's
we go ahead and do the drill. And then we also will do lockdown, to where we practice, kind of what you do if there was, some sort of imminent threat, whether, we're actually right next to a wildlife easement, so we could end up with a mountain lion on our campus. It hasn't happened yet. There has been mountain lions in the area though, so it could happen.
Yeah.
Or an intruder, and then also evacuation. So those are kind of our 3 is, the fire, the lockdown, which could also be a shelter in place where, the difference there being just, we might be looking for someone, and so we just ask teachers to hold all their kids and not let them go anywhere so that we can find the person we're looking for, not that we necessarily think there's a threat.
Mm-hmm.
Or the evacuation, where that could be earthquake or something else like that. It could actually, I had an evacuation that we had a bomb threat at a previous school when I was there, and so we evacuated the school.
Yeah.
So it just kind of depends on what the urgency is. But we practice all those things with the students, and we make sure everybody has safety supplies and things like that in their classroom should it be needed. They all have like little rolling backpacks that have equipment and things in them that they can bring with them, or have in the room if they need them, if they're there for a long time or something like that. We're not an evacuation site. So if there was a large event like an earthquake or something like that where lots of people were being evacuated, it wouldn't be to here.
Okay.
So we don't have a large supply of things. We really only have supplies for our students and our staff.
Okay.
So also knowing that if we were evacuated, a lot of them would go to their families and not stay here on campus.
Mm-hmm.
Our bell schedule is such that students have class 0. We have a 0 period that starts at 7:15, and then first period starts at 8:30, and then we go all the way through 4th period, and then lunch is after 4th period. So we actually have a lot of students that have a 0 through 4, and then they may not have a 5th because they might be an athlete or in band, and so they may not have a 5th period, and then they might only come back for their sport.
Okay.
6th period. So if they're a junior or a senior, they don't have to come back right after lunch, but we also have a 40-minute lunch. So it's a nice long lunch for students and staff.
Wow.
So a lot of our juniors and seniors leave campus at lunch, and quite a few will just walk across the street. There's, a few fast food and other grab and go kind of restaurants across the street at both plazas, and they have procedures because it is a lot of kids potentially. So Chick-fil-A actually, when they were getting ready to open, they came and met with us and actually talked about, ideas we had on how they could, kind of keep the students safe and also have them be patrons. So they have a whole system set up that they've had set up since they opened. Students they're not allowed to eat inside in the dine-in area. They reserve that for other patrons. So students can go in and pick up their food that they've ordered, and then they're asked to leave the restaurant. And so a lot of them, they can sit outside if they want, or a lot of them will actually bring the food back and just come back to school. Now we have well over 100 or so lunch benches under the covered lunch area over by our food services. And then we also have a pretty large quad area here in the center part of campus, and a lot of students will sit in that area. We had the district installed a really nice cover a couple of years ago. So we have a cover over it and lunch tables under it. So even, the last week or so it's been hot, but the students are able to sit in a shaded area and eat their lunches.
Okay.
So
cool.
Yeah. So yes, 9th and 10th graders do stay on campus.
Yeah.
And then the 11th and 12th grade are allowed to leave for lunch.
And you were also talking about zero period through, so your school is on a traditional schedule, never a block or
we're on a traditional 6-period day, where most students start first period and go through 6th, and we do also have some students that start 0 and end early, or some that start 0 and go through 6 and take 7 classes. It really kind of depends. Every student's schedule is unique, and so we have quite a few classes that are 0 period. They're also offered at other times of the day. The exception to that is a few of our sports teams that practice first thing in the morning, but most of our other classes that are offered 0 are also offered later in the day. So a student doesn't have to have a 0 if they don't want to come at 7:15. And our schedule is a little unique because we only do 0 period Tuesday through Friday. On Mondays, that time in the morning from 7:30 to 8:30 is reserved for our teachers to do professional development. So we don't offer a 0 on Monday so that all teachers can participate. And then that means our 0 period Tuesday through Friday is a little bit longer so that they still get the same amount of instructional time. And that's especially helpful if they're in an academic class. We have a teacher here that teaches Calculus BC, and she has a section of it 0 period. She also has it later in the day. So for her, it's a little bit more planning because for the 0 period, they're on a slightly different pace than the other classes that she teaches later in the day. So it takes a little bit of finesse from our staff, but I would say with her 96% pass rate, she made it work last year.
Yeah, that's great. Wow. How does the school support student mental health and wellness? Because I mean,
that was the second part. Sure.
It's actually a separate one. So yeah.
We have 6 counselors on our campus that essentially they serve as kind of that front lines. If a teacher notices a student that is struggling or just has a need, they can pick up the phone or they can shoot an email to the counselor as kind of the first person to say, hey, I noticed something's off with the student. And our counselors are amazing. They'll check in with the student or pull them in and kind of see, what's going on. Or they're available for drop-in for students as well. So a student can just go. We do obviously encourage students, if you're having an issue, outside of school hours, to seek appropriate resources that way. But when you're here at school, they are here as a support. They also have a space that we opened a few years ago that we call the Meadow. Because Mustangs run in the meadow. So we're being clever.
Yes.
So the students can access that at snack, at lunch, and during downtime as a quiet place that's inside. So they kind of have a no screen time policy in there, and it's usually they'll have soft music playing or something like that, and just a way for students to kind of find a quieter space than our quad area that can be kind of loud and noisy and things like that during lunchtime especially. So it kind of lets students decompress a little bit if they need it. Or if a student is having a difficult time and sitting working with their counselor, the counselor might let them go over there for 10-15 minutes before they go back to class kind of thing, just to decompress and return to class. And they also do a lot mental health referrals. We have a program that the district supports called Hazel Health. It's a virtual health program that students can access online counseling and things like that, in addition to, calling a crisis line or something like that. And we do work closely with the Orange County Sheriff Department and the CAT team if a student is in a true mental health crisis and needs immediate support and assistance, to be able to get them that kind of thing as well.
Okay. And where is the Meadow located?
It's adjacent to our counseling office.
Oh, okay.
So it's nice because the counselors are also able to kind of supervise it a little bit. So it's not an unsupervised space where students can just go and hang out. It is adjacent to one of the counselors' offices. So he'll kind of pop out and make sure that, students are being quiet and respectful in there and things like that.
Okay. And do you have a school resource officer? You mentioned the police.
We do. We have a new one this year. Her name is Officer Cassie Jacobs. And so she's partnering with us this year as our school resource officer through the Orange County Sheriff Department. Okay. So we're excited to be working with her. And she's already been on campus almost every day. And so she supports us here. She's a resource for our students, a resource for our families. We have traditionally kind of worked with the school resource officer if there's a student that's having an issue or even just needs to ask advice or something that might be law enforcement related. Our school resource officer is kind of always there as an additional partner and support as well.
And what's great is the city of Mission Viejo provide that. So that's always great. Yeah. How can parents get involved at Trabuco Hills?
We have a very active PTSA here. And what I would say is unique about our PTSA is the S part of PTSA is very robust here. We actually have a lot of students that sit on our PTSA. And I think it's nice for parents, if they are looking for a way to get involved, to be involved in that, because they will hear from students if they attend the meetings. We have students at every grade level that serve as representatives, and then we also have students that are on executive board positions in our PTSA. Wow. So it's a little unique from what I've seen at other schools. We have a wonderful group of parents that run it, and then they're always looking for more parents to come and help support. You don't have to be an active member, so if a parent isn't able to attend meetings, most of our meetings are on Monday nights, and I attend all of the meetings for PTSA as well, so they get to hear from me. And then with them, I also help do some parent engagement things. We'll do coffee with the admin in the morning and at night to try to give parents an opportunity, depending on their work schedule or whatever, to be able to attend. They'll host a parent education night at some point. Last year, their speaker was focused on student tech use and AI and what parents could kind of do to help support their student. So they really kind of try to pick timely things as well. We also have a pretty involved or active ELAC committee, and that's the English Language Advisory Council. And so that's parents who either they or their students are non-native English speakers. Okay. And our primary language here is Spanish, and we have a bilingual parent advocate that is a district employee that helps run those meetings, and she is bilingual in Spanish. And so she will run the meeting in both English and Spanish. So if I'm there presenting, she'll translate what I've said for the parents so that they get that same information in their native language. So it's a nice additional layer. And we have very active booster groups on campus as well. So with our football program, we have a wrestling booster. We also have our pep squad and our band. They have very active parent groups. And most of our sports and other groups like choir and drama and things like that, they have very active groups. So that's, I think, what's unique for parents is when they first have a student at high school is they are kind of looking for that. How do I get involved as a parent? And a lot of times it ends up being through what your student's involved in. For sure. Because at a school our size, that bigger perspective PTSA is great for, and not every parent feels connected through PTSA. So a lot of parents will find, oh, my student's in choir, so they'll get involved in choir. And they might even go on the trips that choir goes on and things like that. Or their student plays football. And so they might, get involved as a football parent booster and that kind of thing. It's a little different than elementary school where a lot of parents are on PTA or serve as a room mom and things like that. We don't really have room parents by the time kids get to high school.
Luckily, they don't need it. I mean, I
think. And the kids definitely don't want it.
Yeah, for sure. They do not want mom and dad on campus. to kind of tie in with that, what type of communication do you have between the school and families?
So every Monday, I send out a Parent Square message that links to our newsletter page.
Okay.
And our newsletter page is updated every week. I have an amazing teacher that is kind of our webmaster. And so she puts every upcoming event, any special schedule, anything that we're doing for the week on that page. It is one of the most trafficked pages in the district.
Oh, that's awesome.
And, I have a little message on there, and then the list of all the events, including links, if any of them are events that you have to pay for a ticket. So when we do a volleyball game, there'll be a link right there that you can click on to buy the volleyball ticket, all of that. So it's a great kind of one-stop shop for parents and keeps them informed of all the upcoming events. If there's a dine out night for choir or, if baseball's doing a clothing drive, all that information will be on that one page. So that parents don't necessarily have to kind of dig around and hunt for that. We use a program called Parent Square to send out all of our communication to parents, and it creates a feed that looks very similar to a social media feed for parents. And so I send out those notifications every Monday, and I include the list of events and links, and then it'll have a link directly to that newsletter page. Teachers are able to send out messages through Parent Square to parents. And parents can even reach out to teachers and staff through Parent Square as well. So it's kind of a nice additional communication on top of email, on top of our web page, and that sort of stuff. So we can use Parent Square to send out alerts when the students first start, that we really make sure that parents don't opt out of those notifications, because then, when they say, oh, the school doesn't communicate with me, it's, well, you actually made a choice not to let us. We really try to make sure that they keep that on so that they get all the alerts and everything. And we'll push out reminders for people to make sure that they've signed up and all that kind of stuff when their students first start.
What percentage of students go on to college or vocational programs?
Well, this past year, we had over 98% of our students graduate.
Wow.
So it was the highest graduation rate we have had since they started measuring it.
Oh my goodness.
For CalPADS. So it was amazing. And I would say of that percentage, to some sort of college, probably, it varies every year, but we hover around 70% that go either to a 4-year or a 2-year college, just depending on the graduating class. And then we do have some students that'll enter the military, and then we'll also have students that elect to try to do a gap year or that go straight into some sort of employment. So, but yeah, we usually hover somewhere around 70%. It's, plus or minus 5, depending on the year. But I would say this past year, our seniors were very successful, and a lot of them did get into colleges and universities that they wanted to attend. My assistant principal of guidance actually just finished the school profile, so I'd have to double check. But yeah, I want to say it was around 78% this past year.
Wow, that's great.
That we're going to go on to some sort of college.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Awesome. How does Trabuco Hills help prepare students for life after high school?
So I feel like that's something we've talked a lot about since I've been here, of just what that looks like for students and really equipping them with skills beyond just going to college, because so much of what happens after high school is more than school. And so it's interesting because I think our attributes really mirror that in a lot of ways, asking students to practice being responsible, respectful, and connected really are things that you do in your daily life as well. And I think our teachers, they've taken those and they have, ways that they measure it in their class that are both academic and non, and really kind of modeling that for students, really encouraging students to be self-advocates, to encourage them to be critical thinkers, to try to do things that support some of those soft skills that I see as so critical in so many ways after students graduate, that a lot of our CTE programs really support. That's where you learn how to work in a group, when you kind of learn how to balance all of the different, elements of your life, between job and family and, health and things like that, and kind of helping teach students all of those skills that aren't necessarily part of a grade in a grade book, but just part of what gives you a fuller life as an adult. So I think our teachers try to do that in a lot of different ways. And sometimes it's an assignment that goes in the grade book, and sometimes it's just you're going to be working with other peers. And what does that look like as you learn how to kind of communicate and collaborate and learn your own strengths and where you can take a leadership role, or maybe you take a back seat on this assignment, and kind of learning that balance and how to actually work with your classmates a little bit.
Yeah.
That was something that I think was a challenge, especially coming out of the pandemic for students, was learning again how to work with others, because for so long they were working in isolation, and learning how to work with each other and what that looks like. And I would even say learning how to balance AI with that, because that is something that has really become much more prevalent. Even, it seems like there's, changes and adaptations to artificial intelligence, every week, every month. And, our teachers are still learning as well of how to balance that, and what's acceptable, what should they be expecting students to do that's original thought, and things like that. And so, kind of how to balance some of that to where it can be useful in certain ways and maybe streamline things, and then also make sure that you're still having your own ideas and thoughts expressed on paper.
Yeah. How does being located in Mission Viejo enhance the high school experience for your students?
I think, Mission Viejo is such a unique and remarkable city in so many different ways, because it's so diverse. And I think it allows students opportunities to connect back to their community. And I think, a school should be representative of the community it serves and really make the community better. So that what I like to see is when we have students that take advantage of opportunities of, when there's service projects around the community. I'm hoping we'll get a good turnout for the Walk Against Drugs in October, and really, having our students give back to the community that they live in to really emulate some of those attributes and traits and values that we see so predominantly in this area, and what this community represents. And, they have access to so many things here that are unique, with the lakes and just, the other different areas. And our students, they don't all come from Mission Viejo. So they also have friends and classmates that live in, the Trabuco Canyon or Rancho Santa Margarita. And so, the trail spaces and just the nature that's around them, and being able to really take advantage of some of those things that make South Orange County so unique as well.
Yeah, and that's a good point, that even though the school is located in Mission Viejo, students are coming from other areas, or Rancho Santa Margarita and like Trabuco Canyon.
Yeah, and the Foothill Ranch and things like that as well.
What should families moving to Mission Viejo know about your school community?
I think in some ways Trabuco's unique in that not a lot of people know about us. I think, we're kind of a hidden gem. I think people know about Mission Viejo High School because, they have a marquee football program, and, their name is the same as the city. So people are maybe a little bit more familiar with them. And I think we're, a little bit of a secret sometimes. And I think if they came on our campus and they met our students, they would see really quickly why it's such a special place, because the students really are what drives so much of what we do here. They're kind. They are unique in a lot of different ways, and a lot of them have such a desire to give back to the community and to learn and grow. And it's a really unique place in a lot of ways. And even, when I first came here in May of 2020 and was walking around the campus, I was so impressed with even just looking out our facilities. If you look out at our football games from our stadium, our baseball field, you can look out and see the foothills. It's such a beautiful vista from up here that I think it offers students a really kind of bird's eye perspective of the area around them too, which is, to me, representative of our school as a whole, is having that bird's eye perspective and being able to have that broader view of the world around them.
Any other things that you would want to add about the school, or that you would want people who want to know more about Trabuco Hills? What would you want to share that I haven't perhaps asked already?
I think one of the things I would say is that, as with some other schools, I think one of the things that is so indicative of our success is how many of our staff bring their own children here, how many of our staff are alums of this school in the area, or are alums of other schools in the area and choose who work here.
Wow.
In that, I think we draw people to our school, not just because of our academic success that's certainly there or all the programs we offer, but the uniqueness that we have and the, activity that we have. We often refer to ourselves as the Mustang family, and that when you come here, you're part of the family. And that was one of the things that I didn't see when I first started here, but, in my first couple years, as I got to know the staff, I really saw how much they care about each other and want to see their students be successful. And as a collective whole, I think it's a really special community that really cares about the students that attend here. And so, if I had a high school student, it would be a school I would be proud to send my own student to be able to attend school here, because I know the teachers here would care a great deal about my student.
Thank you very much for sharing all about Trabuco Hills with people out there. Of course, if they ever want to come for a tour, they could call the school directly.
Yeah, they could call the school directly. If you're moving to the area, it would just be something we would schedule. And I have, myself or a couple of my assistant principals that have been here for a while that we know a lot about the school, and we'd be more than happy to talk to prospective families moving into the area. We do a showcase usually sometime in January. All of our schools in the district do a showcase event that allows families to come here. And the nice thing about that event is you meet all the staff. And, as I said, our staff is really unique and special. And so it's a nice opportunity to talk to all of our teachers and our coaches and the people that make Trabuco who they are.
Thank you so much for your
You're
time.
welcome.
I really appreciate it. I love learning more about the school. And, sometimes obviously we all get caught in whatever funnel we're put in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's also a big part of why I created this channel, was because I live in Mission Viejo and I know my microcosm, but there are people that live in other areas that think their areas are great and have their students go to different schools and think those schools are great. And I think that that's what's so wonderful about Mission Viejo in general, is that there is so much pride, and people, I rarely hear, oh, that's a bad school or this is a bad place to live. You know what I mean? It's just levels of goodness, which I think is, makes Mission Viejo such a special place and such a great place for people to live. So that's why I like helping people move here. And if you're thinking about moving to Mission Viejo, I'd love to help you make it happen. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to stay in the know about Mission Viejo. And don't miss my next video, where you can learn about another Mission Viejo high school, Capistrano Valley.